Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Quirked, bringing you the fifth of the Lichess Season 11 game reviews. I apologize for the delay on the last couple of games. Like I said, there was some issues with my recording for the fourth game, but we're getting back on track here. I'm going to try and pump out these last three really quick so that we can finish up and focus on the current season, which is currently a blast. I'm on board one. I'm getting annihilated. Fun times. I'm one of three. I'm doing okay. But this game is an incredible game. This is a fantastic game between Archone with the white pieces and Fisher66 with the black pieces. Both of these players I've actually played before. They're both very talented players. Archone, I believe I've actually reviewed a game before for the Lichess4545 game reviews, so I guess he just plays really interesting chess, because he's constantly getting his games reviewed, or maybe it's a mod bias. But no, this is an amazing game. It totally deserves to be reviewed, and this is a classic King's Indian. I love this stuff. This is the sort of stuff that makes me happy. So let's dive right in. C4. I'm going to breeze through the opening. It's pretty standard stuff. C4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, d4. We have a King's Indian by transposition. Bishop g7, e4, d6, bishop e2. I mean, sure, normally you go knight f3, but it's all the same, really, because now after knight f3, it's the totally mainline position. Here black goes e5, and I think Archone with the white pieces plays just a teeny bit inaccurately. White goes d5 right away here, which looks like it shouldn't be a problem. But the main move here is castles, and there's actually a very good reason for this. The reason behind this is you want black to commit the knight with knight c6. And now you go d5, and black goes knight e7. This is super duper main line, and white has a couple options here. I've played this position with b4, the bayonet attack, and it leads to fairly sharp play. But the reason you want to induce knight c6 is that when you play d5, the knight has to go to e7, and it can no longer possibly go to the c5 square, which is usually a very nice outpost for the black knight in these positions. And if black attempts to access the c5 square with a move like knight a6, white will not budge with his pawn. White can play a move such as bishop e3 or g5. Let's go bishop e3 just for example. And now, in order to make sense of his knight on a6, black is forced to take. White will play knight takes, and black does get his knight to c5, but he's been forced to improve white's knight and give up some of his control of the center. White should be better here. He has more space. So this is the reason why white generally castles before playing d5, because with this very early d5, I think black is actually already close to equality, and black played very well, realizing that this early d5 is a little bit suspicious. He immediately goes a5. Excellent move. The point behind this move is to restrain b4, and he's going to send his knight directly into c5 because there's no questions about whether or not the knight can get there. The d-pawn has already moved. It's very clear that the knight will find a home on c5. So a5, very sensible, well played. Castles, knight a6. Here, white went h3. Yeah, okay. It's certainly playable, not a blunder by any means. Whenever you play these little pawn moves, though, you want to ask yourself, is this really necessary? Do I really want to spend a full tempo on this move? And the answer is probably not in this case. Here, as white, I would develop my bishop I understand the idea behind h3. The idea behind h3 is white would like to place his bishop on e3 and not be disturbed by knight g4. But here, white can go bishop g5, h6, a very normal response. This pin is annoying. Drop back to bishop h4. This pin is still very annoying. Black is not interested in playing g5. That's a terrible weakening of his structure, which will be bitten at immediately by white. So black will break the pin, and now white simply goes knight d2. And the idea is quite simple. White's now actually very well prepared to meet an f5 push from black by playing f3, and this bishop will find a very nice home on the f2 square. So all of this bishop, which can be slightly misplaced when it goes on this journey, will actually find a nice sensible square on f2. So all of white's pieces make sense. White maybe has some slight pull, nothing major here. Black also has his own ideas with the knight coming to c5, and he'll slowly try and get f5 in, maybe with knight h7. Actually, he can probably play knight h7 right away, and with the point being f5 is coming. And like I said, white can go f3, bishop f2. It's a complicated position. It's a king's Indian, you know, that happens. Instead, white went h3, which, like I said, it is not some terrible move. There's a clear idea to put the bishop on e3. But when you're playing the king's Indian, you have to be very, very careful with these moves like h3. And the reason is, whenever you put this pawn out on h3, you've given black something to target, something to bite at. And the reason I say this is that in these positions, it's very, very common for this bishop's only job to be to take h3. Oftentimes the bishop just sits at home, sits at home, sits at home, and then eventually it takes h3. That's like its only function in the position. I'm not saying that's always the case, but that can be the case. So you've given black a target here. If the pawn's not on h3, black can't play bishop takes h3. That just makes sense. So white does have to be careful that he's not allowing sacrifices on the king's side because of this pawn that's just stuck itself out there, made itself targetable. Knight c5, okay. Queen c2, developing the queen. I mean, you can play bishop e3, or no, you can't play bishop e3, sorry, your pawn's hanging, so queen c2 is a very standard move. And here, black, I think, also made a slightly suspicious move. Black played this move h6. Now, we know how I feel about this move. Do I need to play this move? I'm not convinced that I really want to play this move h6. It does weaken my king side a little bit, giving giving a little bit of a target for white. Now, I understand you're denying white the g5 square, but why don't I play h6 once white plays bishop g5, right? At least force him to spend another tempo. White has already indicated that perhaps the bishop is going to e3 with this h3 move. So I don't like this h6 move. It feels like a slightly wasted move. Again, not some huge deal, but probably not best. What black should do is black should continue advancing his main idea in the position. And of course, the main idea in this position for black is to play f5 at some point. f5 really releases the potential of a lot of black's pieces. That's just a huge common theme in the King's Indian, is in order to break out, black has to undermine the center and give scope to his pieces. So I think a very sensible move is the move knight h5. The reason I find this move so sensible is it actually has two purposes. To play f5 and to put the knight on a nice square f4. Sometimes black will play knight f4 even as a pawn sacrifice, because allowing sort of this structure, even if white can take here, Black often gets huge compensation with the strong bishop. He plays f5, the rook is bearing down this file. That's a lot of arrows, I know. But we get the point. Knight f4 is usually a good move in these positions. And just to give an example of how play might proceed, white can go bishop g5 here, which is one of the problems behind not playing h6. But you just go f6, say, okay, no problem. Bishop e3. I don't think black should allow this damaging of the structure, so b6. Knight d2, just preparing to shore up the structure with f3 and f5. And here, I mean, this is a fairly normal King's Indian position. White can go f3, or white can even allow f4 to be played, but it's definitely complicated. So I think this is the way for black to play. His play just comes a little bit faster in this variation, because instead of wasting this move, he went and advanced his own ideas. So h6 instead, like I said, not best, but okay. Bishop e3, developing, very good. And here, black played a slightly interesting move. Knight on f to d7. Again, I might have played b6 here, but I'm by no means an expert in this in these sorts of positions. But I've gotten stuff like this as white, and a lot of times black players will play b6 here. But this knight fd7 move is not a bad move, because what black is doing is he's protecting the knight, protecting his structure, while also preparing the f5 advance. The only problem is the knight is not happy on d7. It's really gumming up the works here, preventing, sort of limiting the scope of black's pieces. So that is the one problem with this move. Probably slightly better is b6, but I actually like this idea. Black's trying to get his play going quickly. White plays a good move, knight d2. This is just clearing the way for the f-pawn. And f5, this is black's plan. And whenever black plays f5 in a King's Indian, this is immediately a critical position. So, I'd like all my lovely viewers to take a couple minutes here and ask yourself, what should white play? This is a very, very important moment. What should white play? So hopefully you took some time here to figure out what you would play as white. As the white player here, I feel very strongly that there's an only move. I mean, it's not an only move, but I would feel very uncomfortable playing any other position. As white, I have to play ef5. And the reason is, if I play f3 here and allow f4, I very much dislike this position, with the reason being I played h3. And I'm entering this sort of race where I'm going to play on the queen side, black's going to play on the king side, but black's king side play is going to be immensely helped by this target sticking out on h3. So because I played this move h3 and I gave black a target, I would feel obliged to take on f5. In fact, I find that the more I get experience in these positions and the more I play these positions, the more often I'm willing to take on f5, because these positions where black gets f4 are usually very dangerous for white, and so I like just playing ef5 and playing a slightly more positional game. I think Ben Feingold actually has a rule, always play ef5. I think that's one of his rules, and there's some reason to this. It can be very dangerous if you allow black to lock the center and get sort of a free kingside attack. And after gf5, you might be a little bit worried because you're like, hold on, isn't f4 a problem? And I would say, yes, I don't really want to allow f4. f4 does give up control of the e4 square, but f4 is going to force you to give up the dark square bishop. So my idea here behind ef5, oh god, ef5, gf5, is to immediately prevent f4 with the move f4. And here I think white is better. The reason being, white is starting to tear apart the center, and again, black's pieces are slightly misplaced here. This is not really how black wants to arrange his pieces. And the other slightly annoying thing for black is he's really going to be forced to take on f4 at some point. The problem here for black is if you make some waiting move, I'll make my own waiting move. And I'm going to say, how are you untangling this position without taking on f4? The main problem is knight f6 simply isn't a move. Knight f6 is a very sensible move, a move you'd like to play, but knight f6 runs into takes, and you just have issues with your pieces and how a lot of them are hanging. So, unfortunately, black cannot make waiting moves. And the other thing is, black does not want to play e4. If you play e4, you get a connected pass pawn in the center, but every pawn push gives up control of squares. You've lost control of this square d4. So white goes knight b3, and white is looking to take advantage of this square you've given up. The connected pass pawn is not such a big deal. White might play g4 at some point and actually get his own kingside attack going. So white should be better in this position because white has better control of the center. Your pieces all are slightly silly. So that leaves us taking, which is black's best move, bishop f4, and this I think is just slightly nice for black, or sorry, for white, excuse me. Black has these weird pawns that he's not too happy about, and black's king is quite open. It actually might be the black king that ends up in a little bit more trouble than the white king in this game. Black does have nice squares for his knights, that's true. He also has a nice bishop, so it's by no means lost for black, but white does have some long-term edge here. So this is how I would react to f5. Take f4 seems quite strong to me from the white side. However, white did play f3, which allowed black to play f4, and like I said, I very much dislike this position from the white side because of this target. And from here, I think black played incredibly powerfully. Black didn't give white any time to rest. And black started off with the very, very strong move, bishop f6. This is a brilliant move. And the reason is, first off, this bishop is ridiculous. All these pawns are on dark squares. And second off, white has massive dark square weaknesses around the king. So black sort of puts two and two together and says, my bishop sucks, your king is weak on the dark squares, let's trade the dark square bishops. So this is a brilliant idea. His idea is to go bishop h4 and trade off the bishops. And the position has become quite difficult for white to play. I think I would ask, take a moment. What would you play for white here? Because I didn't like how white played in this moment. So take a second here. What should white play? Hopefully you took some time on our second puzzle here. I think clearly white needs to initiate his own play. Because given enough time, black is going to invade the kingside and checkmate you. So you need to do something elsewhere. So very, very sensible looking to me is the move b3. With the simple plan of, I'm going to go a3 and b4 and get going on the queen side. And play might continue like this. Bishop h4, a3, takes, rook takes, knight f6. And this knight is coming for your dark squares, as advertised. Which means that, unfortunately, you can't play the desirable move, rook on f to f1, because after knight h5, knight g3 is going to be problematic. And you can't play b4 yet, because you're pinned to your undefended rook. So you have to make another preparatory move, queen b2, knight h5, b4, takes, 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 knight a6, and here you're attacking the pawn, queen a3. White actually has a somewhat reasonable position. White has managed to drum up some play. He is prepared to go c5, or perhaps knight a4 and c5 in some positions. So White actually has a reasonable position, and White managed to trade some pieces off, which makes it less likely that he's going to get murderously mated on the king side. So, to me, b3 looks like by far the best move, initiating your queenside play. The move White did play, I think, is actually really bad for a couple reasons. White played the move rook on f to b1. And I believe I understand the idea. I think perhaps White was considering evacuating the king side. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work. It's just not going to happen. And that's something you just have to calculate concretely. Because after the move bishop h4, if you try and run, then takes, takes, I get this check-in, and you're cut off from running to the queen side. So this rook fb1 move is not a good idea. The other problem with this move, rook fb1, is that you're not threatening to play b4. You still have to play b3, a3, b4. So what it feels to me like White did is, first of all, White wasted a move, and they removed a defensive piece from the king side. So after this, Black is seriously better, and Black's going to develop a really nasty kingside initiative, starting with the advertised bishop h4. Very good. Knight d1. Sort of by necessity, you can't allow king takes f2, or you can't be forced to play king takes f2, because then queen h4 comes in with check, and the king is just going to get annihilated. So knight d1 is sensible. It's possible that the best move is rook f1, but that's a really sad move to play. So okay, knight d1. Black plays bishop g3. I like this move a lot. This is very annoying. The point here is you really don't want to take this. If you take this and give me this pawn on g3, you're going to be really unhappy that you allowed this pawn to show up on g3. I'm going to go queen h4, knight f6, take this, and call it a game. But one thing to note is that despite this looking scary, Black does not have an immediate threat. So I know it's scary. I know it's so hard. But in this position, White has to play b3. He has to. And you are allowing this sort of stuff. But again, no threat right this second. Okay. I can play a3. And I'm going to try and get my play going before I immensely die on the king side. b4. And White's probably going to lose, but at least I did something. At least I'm giving Black things to worry about. That's all I really wanted. I wanted Black to worry about something. right in the game, black really doesn't have to worry about anything. After knight f1, putting pressure, white or black simply brings the queen in, very logical, and says, okay, you want to take my bishop? Please. Please take my bishop. Nothing would bring me more joy. And I think white correctly decided not to. If you take the bishop, this is just disaster. You've actually given me a nice square. I still have these ideas of checkmating you, so this really isn't playable. This is the sort of thing where you're just going to get mated. So white instead played queen d2, with the idea of going queen e1, putting more pressure. But again, black is just in time. Knight f6, queen e1, knight h5. He's not giving up control of this square. This is a clinic on controlling weak squares. Black said, I see this weak dark square, I'm going to bring everything in to control this dark square. And finally, white goes b3, saying, look, I can't do anything on the king's side. I have to get something started on the queen's side. Notice that, again, taking this just isn't playable. If you take with anything, I simply take back, and you're just lost. I'm just going to come and checkmate you. In fact, I think this works almost immediately. And how are you stopping mate? So this can't be played. So b3 played by white. And we've come to another critical position. Black has really maximized his pieces. All three of these pieces are doing God's work on the king's side. They're all on the perfect square. So it's times like these where you need to look for tactics. And black certainly recognized this. Black looked for tactics in this position. So the question I ask to you, dear viewer, is, does the move bishop takes h3 work? Is this a good move in this position? And you need to take actually quite a bit of time here, because this is one of the most complicated things I've ever seen. This position is the reason why this game got nominated, because this is immensely complicated and incredibly interesting. So take some time here. Does bishop takes h3 work? Hopefully you at least attempted to work it out. I doubt you found everything. I certainly did not. I full disclaimer, used the computer a lot here because this is wickedly complicated. But the best move in the position is, of course, bishop takes h3. And black is borderline winning here. We get this position. And what you need to realize here is that, again, white can't take this bishop. Let's see why. If you go knight takes, I play knight takes, I'm threatening mate. F takes, and you can't stop checkmate. So this is clearly just unplayable. If instead you go bishop takes, I'll play pawn takes, and you can't take this. I mean you can, but it's a piece sacrifice and you get mated. H1 is a little bit tender here. Maybe you're not getting mated, but I mean, I don't even have to play queen h1. I can just slowly build up. So this is a total disaster. So white has to make a move, which is not actually an easy thing to do. This knight can't move. This knight is in no way useful to the defense. So let's say rook b2, trying to defend laterally. But black has a crushing move here. Pause if you'd like to find out. So the crushing move for black is the simple move, rook f4. This is really caveman chess. Let's go. Stop me. Stop me from mating you. You have to play knight f2. But here, unfortunately, you run into even more tactics. A pin! And this is just disaster. Black, you gave back the piece. Black's still attacking you. You're screwed, basically. So, unplayable. That means that in this position, white can't take the bishop. And if white can't take the bishop, what is white doing, really? Like, how does white proceed to play this game? And I think once you realize this, you can actually, in good faith, go ahead with the sacrifice. Because white simply can't do anything on the king side. There's no way for him to affect the king side, which means that black has all the time in the world to just prepare his attack. And there's some tricks to look out for. White actually has vaguely an only move in this position, which is rook c1. Full disclaimer, I did not see this at all. And there's a forced variation that explains why rook c1 is the best move. And to demonstrate it, let's see what happens after a3. So a3 looks like a very sensible move, just preparing to start queenside play. I mean, it sounds so casual. Let's start our queenside play while we're getting checkmated. But I mean, you have to do something, so a3 seems like a reasonable move. But black actually has immediate devastating tactics, and that involves getting more pieces into the attack. There are three pieces that aren't playing, so black can actually immediately involve two of them with the very nice sacrifice knight takes e4. fe4 forced, and the point is f3. Black involved the knight, and now he's bringing the rook to the party. And this is a double threat. I'm threatening the bishop, and I'm threatening to instantly mate you. So you don't want to take this, because after rook takes f3, things are really falling apart for you. I have knight f4 coming with a mate threat that's going to be very difficult to stop. So here, instead of this, where is it? After f3, you have to guard the mate, knight d3. I will take the piece, and after knight g3, bishop g3, we come to a very strange position where black is down 2 pieces, he has 3 pawns, and he's winning. I mean, if you see this position as black, you might not understand that you're winning. But black is indeed winning here due to a very nasty variation. Granted, you have to see this like 5 moves in advance, but yeah, this is really difficult. The move is rook f3. It's a double attack. White says, I don't want to give one of my pieces back. Bishop f2. And here's where you sort of stall out, because a move like queen g4 is not great. I'm going knight g2, and I've really defended myself here. I have moves like rook a2 or b2 coming. I'm going to take this, or I might just take this right away, and this is not working the way I want it to be working. So the really, really nasty move here, and I think the move that's almost impossible to see from like 7 moves out, is the move queen h5. And this is a dual-purpose move. I've tactically protected my e2 pawn. Queen e2 is met by rook g3. And the other threat here is checkmate. So white goes knight g2, I threaten mate, knight h4, and g5. And I'm going to win a piece. I'm still absolutely mating you. Black is winning here. So that was a crazy variation. And remember, I said that back here, the only move in this position is rook c1. And you might ask, well, Quirk, why does this make any difference? Well, observe. Knight e4, fe4, f3, knight d3, f takes e2, knight takes g3, knight takes g3, bishop takes g3, rook f3, bishop f2, queen h5, knight g2, rook h3, knight h4, and if you go g5 here, this is the difference. I have the astonishing rook c3. If you saw this intensely, deeply prophylactic idea, then I don't understand why you're not a grandmaster yet. Because this is insane. To see that, oh, in that position 8 moves ago, I had to play rook c1, so that in this incredibly forcing variation, I have rook c3 tactically defending all my stuff. And this is even assuming you saw the queen h5 idea from black, or even got to that position. I mean, this is just insane. So this is a crazy line, a crazy computer line. I don't claim to have seen really much of this myself. But going back, even if you do play rook c1, you're still in trouble because black has some more incredible resources. After knight g2, rook h3, knight h4, black has the mind-blowing move. Instead of playing g5, black plays the incredible move rook d3. And here, black is still down 2 pieces, but he has 3 pawns, and black is simply saying to white, hey white, I don't think you can move your pieces. And here's why. If any major piece moves, rook d1 is going to win material. Well, okay, first off, the queen literally can't move. It has no moves. This rook going to b1 is totally useless, and if this rook tries to challenge, rook d1 wins some material. Granted, it's actually not so clear-cut because black is down significant material, but this does win material. Here, white probably goes like rook e3 and plays the position down queen for rook. And this is not so clear. I mean, what is the material? Queen for rook, bishop, knight. Queen and 2 pawns for rook, bishop, knight. It's something. I think black is better because white's king is still the most ridiculous thing on the board, but I mean, this is playable. And the other thing after rook d3 is you can't move your bishop because your knight is a problem. And if you go something like knight g2, well, I just bring everybody to the party. And I'm asking you, how are you improving this position? I'm actually not sure. So this is quite a resource. But going back, after rook c1, say you don't find this idea. Black is actually just massively better without tactics. Like I said, white cannot affect the king side, so black can just slowly build up his attack and say, what are you doing? How are you defending yourself? So black just goes like rook f7. And, okay, say I'm trying to defend, right? Rook f8. And I'm just asking you, what are you doing? How are you how are you making progress in this position? I'm making clear progress. All my pieces are coming to better squares. I'm improving. Is the rook on c3 really an improvement? Are you untangling your pieces in any way, shape, or form? And the answer is no. White can't do anything. So I can take as much time as I want. White probably has to go a3 to try and do something. And black has a couple options here. Black can play this cheeky little move, a4, with the point being after b4, I go knight b3, and all of a sudden this knight finds a new way into the game. Or black can play another astonishing computer line. I have to say, I didn't find this. Rook g7. And the purpose behind this move is really, really cute. So first and foremost, it prepares to go g5, g4. That's obvious. But there's actually another hidden, horrendously devious purpose to this move. So this is going to be the last puzzle for this game. After white plays the incredibly logical b4, black to play and win. I urge you to take time with this. Try and find this. This is an incredible idea. The winning move for black is the astonishing rook f5. You attacked my knight. Let me give you a rook. Have them both if you want. I don't care. And let's see what this does. Well, okay. I'm an idiot. Let's take the rook. Oh yeah, this rook on g7 does some really nasty things. Some really, really nasty things. I'm threatening instant checkmate with bishop h2, queen g2. And it's just unstoppable. This is me. You can't stop me. Okay, I don't want to take the rook. I agree. Let me take the knight instead. You gave me a knight. I like knights. Well, this rook slides into the g-file with the same problem. I'm threatening instant checkmate. How do you stop me? You can't. Which means that you just lose. If you can't take my rook, and you can't take my knight, you can't stop rook g5. So this is GG. The game is over. An incredible variation. But it just shows that black's in no rush. Black has all the time in the world to slowly build the attack. So going back to the game position, bishop takes h3 was unfortunately not played, despite being a really, really interesting try. Instead, black had all these great ideas, but he just messed up the move order a little bit. Black started with the move knight e4, which we saw is very powerful, but unfortunately not working. And the reason is, after fe4, bishop h3, the problem with including this is that you've opened up the eyes of my e2 bishop. And the reason this is very, very problematic is now this bishop can eliminate one of the pieces guarding g3. Before, this bishop had no control over the g3 square. And we know that's the most problematic square for white. But now you've given the chance for this bishop to influence the g3 square by simply snapping off the knight. And unfortunately for black, black is now lost. The tactics no longer favor him because white will be able to eliminate the problems on this square. Bishop g2, king g2, queen h5, and takes. You no longer have control over this square, which means that I will be able to eliminate your attack. fg3. Here, white played rook b2, which is a perfectly good move, just preventing stuff from landing on the f2 square. It is possible to take this. And after queen e3, I'm just going to bring this in, or play queen e3. I have a lot of ideas here. I'm up 2 knights. That's pretty good. I like having 2 knights. So this was certainly playable, or rook b2, fine. Here black tried, I think black was in pretty horrendous time trouble here, so he desperation tried rook f1, hoping for queen f1, queen h2, and rook f8, winning a full queen. But white simply played king f1, and white is winning. There's nothing here. If you go rook f8, trying to lure me into mate, I will not be tricked. I'll go king g2, and hey, this rook b2 move was a pretty useful move. So black tried queen h1, but after king e2, white's king is actually very safe. I'm up a rook and a knight. That's a lot of material, so the game is over. The game went only 3 more moves. The game went over only 3 more moves. Let me try that English again. Queen h2, king d3. Notice that somehow everything's protected, despite it being all topsy-turvy. g2, and here white simply went queen f2. And unfortunately, you can't queen, you give up your own queen. And that was the game. Black actually lost on time here. I don't blame him. He's dead lost. There's nothing really to play. You can queen, but this just isn't anything. You're still down a rook and a knight, and you've lost a pawn. So white is simply winning here. So an incredible game. Really astounding. And I think a good lesson on sort of practical sacrifices and how, sorry, not here. In this position, I would be happy playing bishop h3 once I realized that white can't address the issues on the king side. White can never take g3. And that would actually be enough for me to be willing to sacrifice on h3. Even if I don't see the immediate tactics surrounding this sacrifice. Because there are some immediate tactics for black. But black gets good positions by just doing simple stuff. And, you know, going like this and saying, wait, you can't do anything. Even here, even if white, sorry, not this line. Even if white, where's rook f7? Even if black doesn't find this incredible move, rook f5, I go knight d7. And I say, I still have this massive attack coming with g5, g4. And you still can't do anything to stop me. So this is a good lesson in not rushing things. Be patient. Sometimes your sacrifice doesn't need immediate return if the long-term issues can't be addressed. And that's definitely the case here. White never can control g3 enough, which means that black just has a long-term attack that can't be stopped, which I found very instructive. A really nice game. Unfortunate that the black player couldn't find the coup de grace. He played actually brilliantly up to this point, but just slightly mismove ordered his tactics. I always say, check the obvious stuff. To me, bishop h3 was really the obvious move to check. And knight e4 actually wasn't so obvious to me. Knight e4 is only something I would think about once I got to this position and saw that I had these ideas of knight e4 and f3. Unfortunate that I missed a move order, but a great game. Both players, I think, should be proud of their play. And that's all for this game. I'll catch you later with another game. Adios.